premise for this show is that there's a school where people learn to hunt monsters. We follow a handful of characters at this school, particularly the 4 girls of Team RWBY. The main arc of this show is that one of those girls gets infected with a brain parasite, and the gang's gotta get together and do an inception to her dreams and kill the parasite and save her. I think this show's biggest problem is how it misuses its screen time. Listen, I've seen the original season 1 of RWBY, and this show basically tries to condense the events of one season and set up this whole nightmare parasite concept in a mere 3 episodes. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. Episodes 1 and 2 are really well paced out, honestly surpassing the original show and setting up the story in my book. But episode 3, they just try to jam in so much, and it does such a poor job. There's a big lack of establishing shots and, God, I can't believe I'm saying this, but exposition. In particular, there's a scene that is abruptly cut to of 2 characters, Jean and Pura, on a roof discussing some lore, and Weiss is there watching them. I don't know how these characters got here, why they're here, or where they really even are other than a roof. Another example in that episode is when Jean gets infected with a brain parasite and it's dealt with very quickly. I need way more setup for how they did that inception thing, and why would you introduce such an interesting idea, elaborate very little, then just move on really quickly? That bothers my mind. After those first 3 episodes, episodes 4 to 11 tell a really interesting story inside of Weiss's dream. I like that. Then episode 12 feels like a collection of a dozen different after credit scenes, which entirely just felt like a waste of time. They should have used that last episode's time to instead pad out the beginning episodes from 1 to 3. Instead of doing 1 to 3 as exposition, you do 1 to 4 as setup, okay? Then you do episodes 5 to 12 as the cool dream story. However, I think another problem with the show is that they wanted to tell the story of going into Weiss's dream and saving her, which is cool and good, but they didn't have enough content for 12 episodes. So they're like, all right, how do we pad this out? All right, let's just tell the OG lore of RWBY. However, the problem with the OG lore of RWBY is that it wasn't created to tell the story of friends entering the mind of another friend to kill a brain parasite. It's got way more scope to it. So the first 3 episodes feels like they're setting up a story that's going to have a much wider breadth and scope. They're going to cover a lot more, but it doesn't. If I were in charge of this project, I would have just made the 8 episodes about Weiss being in a dream, I think. But if I had to use 12, you got to use that to set up a story about Weiss, not about the whole gang and the school and the society. Use the first 2 or 3 episodes to really follow Weiss, see where her head's at. That way, the scope is restrained. Then you use the rest of the show to follow the gang through the dream, and while they're in there, maybe you give some flashbacks for the characters so we can see how they got where they are. I think that's all I have to say about the misuse of time. The scope was just too large in the beginning, and episode 12 was just a waste. As far as the bulk of this show goes, that being the dream sequence, I don't really want to spoil much. I liked it. I don't know how much of that is because I saw the old RWBY back in the day, but I did like it. There's a few problems with the dream sequence, though. I think one is that Jean, of all people, gets too much screen time and has weirdly overpowered abilities that aren't really explained. How did you get here? Why are you here? This should be a story about the 4 main core members of RWBY, but Jean's here for some reason. The dream person originally talks about only close friends can enter. Why is Jean here, and why is he so overpowered then? That's a minor problem. I think the main problem with the dream side is kind of summed up in one part, where the dream person that helps them enter the dreams is okay, I gotta recharge my ability. You guys go come up with a plan. Okay, first of all, why isn't anyone else helping them come up with a plan? I feel like the headmaster, the dream person, maybe Team Juniper, maybe even more, should be there helping them trying to come up with a plan. Okay, but then they go and try and come up with a plan. Guess how they do it? They each split up on their own to come up with their own plan. which somehow miraculously works, and they each come up with their own unique way of approaching the dream, and then they propose their ideas to the dream person, and the dream person's like, yeah, you can do that, which was weird to me. The dream person before would kept saying stuff like, oh, you can't change the dream, and then the characters ask, but what if we did? And then they're like, I mean, you could change it if you think it's a good idea. I was like, what? Why are you giving these mixed messages? Someone's life is on the line. But that sequence there was pretty much my main problem with the arc, like the problems with like the rules of the dream, and then also why did we split up? That was dumb. I guess one nitpick was that I wish the dreamscape was a lot more surreal. I mean, it was already pretty surreal, but I guess I wanted it even weirder. Okay, I keep crapping on this show, but what did I like about it? I did like it overall. That's a good question. Listen, when it comes down to it, there's just a lot of good action. The characters have interesting interpersonal struggles that are explored, and the thought of adventuring through a dream was kind of cool. It just felt like a really cool story that I've mostly enjoyed. It's kind of hard for me to give a particular praise because I just don't want to spoil something that I thought was cool. Despite it all, I did really enjoy this show, like 90% of everything that happens from episodes 4 to 11. I think if you're a RWBY fan, you should definitely check this out, but otherwise, I'm not sure. Its real problem is that it just misuses time in the beginning and the end. I guess if it sounds interesting, you should check it out. Alright, I'll finish up by ranking this anime. Out of the 16 shows I've reviewed on this channel, I'd put it at number 8, above the Yakuza's Guide to Babysitting, but below Licorice Recoil. That's all I gotta say about this anime. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe, and all that. I've been Roman Romantic. I'll see you again next time.